but I'm pretty sure we're going to end up with another surgery this year. Hopefully that'll put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Okay, so in March of last year, I was able to bring our second child into the world, Sydney. It was a difficult delivery because she came out a little cockeyed, and I felt a little pop when she was coming out in my right hip, and it just hasn't been the same ever since. Running's been a little painful, and so right after, I saw a pelvic floor therapist to help just get the muscles activated again and firing. I also got an MRI that showed a small labral tear in my right hip, but I was told it wasn't my cause of my pain at that time. And through 2021, I was able to get back into racing shape and have some really good successes at the European Championship, where I got second to Laura Phillip, and PTO Collins Cup, and Ironman Florida. But my run just wasn't coming along, and I was experiencing pain in my right knee because my hip had changed my gait a bit. I haven't talked about that much because in late 2021, I learned that there was a hole in the cartilage underneath my patella and on my femur. And last December, I had a surgery to do a lateral release of my patella so it would slide over, and so those two holes in the cartilage wouldn't line up. While this surgeon was in there, he also drilled microfractures into my femur to stimulate the bone marrow to come up and create new cartilage. He cleaned up the meniscus and the fat pad and removed my pica. That started a really long road to recovery. After only being back to running for about 6 weeks, I won Ironman Texas in April, but I had a pretty significant hitch in my run gait. And after finally feeling like I could do the run workouts that I wanted, everything came to a head in September when I went down to Texas for my Kona prep that I always do, and the PTO US Open in Dallas. The week before the PTO US Open, I had the biggest training week of my life. Unfortunately, my saddle on my bike slipped a little bit at some point, and I did a few miles out of that position that I'm so used to. By the time I caught it, my right hip had tightened up, and I got as much treatment as I could before I headed down to up to Dallas. The swim went really well and put me in a good position for the bike, but I just couldn't push the power that I'm normally used to doing on the bike, and didn't move through the field like I wanted to. But by the time that the run came, my right hip was tight, but I pushed through, and I felt like I had a solid, decent run. And after the race, though, I could hardly walk. I remember going to the grocery store and holding onto the cart for dear life as I was going through. I came home for a few days before flying out to Kona, but my PT was out of town. I got 2 long massages with the massage therapist I work with here, but my adductor and my iliopsoas were just solid knots. And once I got to Kona, I was able to work with an amazing osteo named Hansi, who traveled with Patrick Lange down there. And he was able to work with me every single day for basically 2 weeks before Kona. And 2 days before Kona, we decided to do a little bit of a test run since I hadn't run since the PTO Open. It wasn't pretty, but I felt it was the first time I felt like I could race the marathon and not just complete the marathon. I got through the swim in Kona in a great position coming out of the water with the second main group, and I was able to bike my way into 3rd place until I got hit with a ridiculous unintentional littering penalty that's another story for another time, and ended up dropping back a few places. But on top of all of that, something went wrong with my elbow, and it was painful to be in aero on my elbow, and so I had to have my elbow off the back of the pad, and so it twisted me on the bike a little bit. So by the time I had transitioned, all the work that we had done on my hip to loosen it up just flew out the window. My run gait was so messed up that I had volunteers after I ran through transition asking me if I was okay or if I needed any help. The further that I got into the run, the more my hip hurt, the slower that I got, and my left elbow like exploded with an infection. And by the time I got to the energy lab, I was walking. When I got out of the, sorry, I haven't talked about this much. When I got out of the energy lab, my coach was waiting for me there, and we decided to call it a day and gave me a big hug that was needed. That is when I climbed onto the roller coaster. Pause. I need water. So the immediate need after Kona was to find out what the heck was happening with my elbow. My coach connected me with a German doctor that we went to, and he took one look at it and said, go to a hospital to get it dealt with. So we went to the Kona Community Hospital, where they drained my elbow, gave me 2 IV antibiotics, and then prescribed 2 more. At this point, I could not walk. We went around the island, found a cane, and then finally found crutches, and headed back to Boise on Wednesday after a week after the race, basically. And I was able to see my primary care physician the next day on Thursday, who referred me to an orthopedic surgeon and ordered an MRI, which I was able miraculously to get on Friday. And the MRI report came back later that night. Stress fracture is what it looks like.
Well, what do you think of that?
Well, that's actually really good news.
That's good news?
That's non-surgical.
I guess that's true.
But that also means I was down for trying to do an Ironman. But I think, we'll go back with 2 crutches now until he goes see the ortho. I'll have the appointment on Thursday.
While in Kona, I suspected that I had a stress fracture because I couldn't walk, and so that's why we bought the crutches, and now the MRI confirmed it. 6 days after that, we had the first visit with an orthopedic. That visit did not go well. The doctor diagnosed me with a stress fracture and told me to stay on crutches for 6 weeks. He was absolutely convinced that all of my pain was there because of the stress fracture, and didn't want to do anything on anything else until we had that heal for 6 weeks. I was not convinced. The MRI report also showed the same labral tear that it had showed a year ago. And the x-rays, though, didn't show any cam or pincer bony lesion abnormalities. So the doctor wasn't concerned about that labrum at all, but I was. The surgeon that did my knee last year is a good friend and recommended that I see a different orthopedic that he always refers his patients to if he can't help them. And we got on his schedule 5 days later. And the experience with Dr. Grimm was so different. He actually listened to me. He listened to my story. He connected dots. And I felt so heard. He looked at the MRI and diagnosed a low-grade stress fracture, maybe even a stress reaction. Thought crutches were super unnecessary, and said, get rid of them and you can walk and just taper off of running. And I was like, I can't run right now. I'm in too much pain. And then for the labral tear, he said that about 20% of people with labral tears never even have pain. And so said, after some manipulations, let's refer you to Dr. Williams, who's a general surgeon, evaluate you for a potential hernia. As soon as we stepped out of the appointment with Dr. Grimm, we called Dr. Williams' office, but found out he was out of the country. So we scheduled with his partner for the following week. At that appointment, that doctor looked at the MRI and concluded that it did not come out far enough to be able to see a hernia. He did some palpations, a hands-on evaluation, and said there might be a hernia, but wasn't certain. And so he started describing the exploratory surgery that he was going to do to see if there was a hernia or a sports hernia. And I stopped him and said, can we actually get some more imaging done before we cut me open to do a CT or anything? So he agreed and ordered a CT that I was able to get the next Monday. And Scott and I walked out of that appointment and we were thinking, why would we have surgery even before ordering some imaging? And we did not feel comfortable going back to him. So after getting the CT on the following Monday, we tried to schedule a follow-up with Dr. Williams, who is the one who we originally were referred to for a second opinion. His office informed us that they wouldn't take our insurance and that he wouldn't be able to see us because he doesn't even have any surgeries for the rest of the year. And so Scott somehow miraculously talked them into seeing us just to provide a second opinion and understand that we couldn't get surgery from him. And we got that appointment scheduled 9 days later. At the end of that week, I got another MRI with contrast this time, just to check up on that bony edema that I was having on my femur, and then we saw Dr. Grimm again. He looked at the images and said that bony edema, stress fracture, stress reaction, whatever that was pretty much healed. You couldn't even see it. My knee had still been bugging me through this time, and so I just wanted to see a second opinion on that as well, since we were already digging into all of these other things. He ordered an x-ray on my knee while we were there at his office, and looked at the images that were taken during the surgery last year. And when he walked into the room, the first thing that he said to me was, "Girl, what did you do to your knee? That is so bad."
I had a knee surgery last year, so we wanted to just get his opinion on that. That wasn't great. Basically, just gonna have pain through the rest of my career. Not really anything more we can do about it until after I'm done, and even then, not much that would really help a lot until just a total knee replacement, which is always wonderful to hear. So that was great news to start with. I mean, you could already see like arthritic changes in my knee on the x-rays that they took. You know, when they took me back for x-rays, I was like, oh gosh, you never can see anything on x-rays. This is like soft tissue stuff. Like, this is pointless. I hate getting x-rays because there's no point, because you can't see anything. And then they send you for the MRI because, you know, you can't see anything on the x-rays, but you could. It's changed enough that you can. So, it's, you know, yeah, he said it's pretty much inevitable to have a knee replacement. It's just, you know, 5 years earlier or 5 years later if I continue during my career. So I think the hardest thing to hear was about my knee. You asked me on, like, is that what you thought was gonna, like, is that what you thought you were gonna hear? Yeah, it's what I thought I was gonna hear, but hearing it is different than thinking it. Lots different. So. Yeah. I'm looking for a root cause of all of this because I'm not a prone to injury kind of athlete, and so I'm really wanting to find out why this is happening. And I think a labral tear at least would be like a good foundation for these injuries to have happened from. And so I think that's that's just what my gut says. That's what my gut has said for the last month and a half. For really the last year and a half. And so who knows what we're going to end up with. We'll find out more tomorrow and, and go from there. And I'm pretty sure we're going to end up with another surgery this year. Hopefully that'll put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
So the next day we had our appointment with Dr. Williams, our miraculous appointment, to be able to review that CT scan, check if I had a hernia. The report of the CT showed that I did have a very small inguinal hernia, and his physical exam confirmed it as well. He recommended moving forward with surgery, open, instead of robotic or laparoscopic, just so he could check if there's a sports hernia in there as well. Well, he's already there. He offered to do a tissue repair, but said he preferred mesh repairs because of the advancements in mesh technology. They have a more likelihood of not needing to be redone in the future. And so after he finished, we were thinking, great, now we have to schedule surgery with someone. But his medical assistant walked in and she said, I have some really good news.
Oh, it is your lucky day because there was just a cancellation on Monday. So now we have surgery in 5 days for an inguinal hernia, which will hopefully be a lot of the pain. And now we have to decide if we do a labral repair and inguinal hernia repair, or we just do the hernia and see if that helps with everything and go from there. So anyway, we are riding the roller coaster of highs and lows, because yesterday on this camera we were crying a whole lot, and now I can't stop smiling. So anyway.
So the hospital that I was going to for the surgery requires COVID testing a couple days prior to your surgery. And so that Saturday before the Monday, I went in the afternoon, got a COVID test, no symptoms, thought nothing of it. And then I got my results back.
Got my results that I am actually COVID positive. I haven't had any symptoms until today, really. I woke up after not a great night's sleep with a headache, which I just put down to not having a great night's sleep. And yeah, so now it's I have absolutely no idea what's gonna happen, but this whole roller coaster of emotions keeps on giving. It's been a journey, and I am ready to have felt like I can be close to the middle or end of it.
Okay, so we called the doc the next day, and he canceled the surgery and told us to call his office on Monday to reschedule. So we did that, and his MA found a opening in his schedule at another hospital that didn't require COVID testing on December 12th. But she needed to make some calls to make sure that would work with everything. And I was also supposed to talk with Dr. Grimm the next day to just discuss coordinating hernia surgery, possibly doing the labrum, what we were going to do. But I had COVID at that point, and so I had to cancel. Fortunately, he was able to just give me a call that afternoon instead. And he felt like it would be risky to do the hernia repair first, because he has to put traction on my leg to open up that hip joint to get to the labrum. And so he was concerned that if we did the hernia surgery first, then he would damage the hernia repair by doing that traction too soon after the surgery. So we decided that it would probably be better to do the labrum first and then fix the hernia. And so now the challenge is to find a spot in a hospital in the area that has hip traction device and accept our insurance, to be able to schedule that labral hernia, and hopefully as soon as possible. So in the meantime, we went down on that roller coaster again and got a call back from Dr. Williams' office, and he said he would not perform the surgery within 28 days of a COVID test, And so that would make December 19th the first available date, but he's not available that week or the week after or the week after. And so January 9th is his first appointment to be able to fix the surgery, the hernia. And so all of this has been super emotional and trying, and lots of tears and some highs here and there. Being able to get an MRI so soon when I got home, being able to get into the surgeon that I wanted to, being able to get a surgery in 5 days and then that taken away. And I just want to do my job. I love triathlon. I love racing. I love training. I love running. Coming out of some of those surgeons' offices has been like just some of the hardest time that I've had. Some of the darkest times that I've had. Any prayers or good vibes that you can send out there would be all so appreciated, to be able to get this dealt with as soon as we can, as fast as we can, and as efficiently as we can. So thanks for watching.